Welcome again to People Talk To. I'm Miyoshi Levy, and we are here today. Wait a minute. First of all, People Talk To is a community forum and platform for those in the community to shine a light on what they're doing in the community because we don't know what we don't know. So we are welcoming our guests today, and we will be discussing issues in regards to special needs and special needs children. And each person here today will assist me in finding out more about what's going on in our community. Ladies, please introduce yourself to our community.
Hi, my name is Grace Rice.
And what do you do?
I'm a earnest voice advocating for children who are disabled and trying to shine a light on the brilliance of children that live with disabilities.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Amanda Urick. I'm a faculty member at Cleveland State University in special education and director of the Community Learning Center at Cleveland State University.
Hello, I'm Leslie Sims, and I am a retired flight attendant.
And my friend. Today we wanted to shine a light on what Miss Grace is doing in the community.
Okay, thank you.
Please share.
Yeah, well, I, as not only being an earnest voice, shining a light on the brilliance of children, I'm also developing, authoring books that showcase the abilities that these children do have. They actually have talents, gifts, and abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that to showcase as well what they can do and how they overcome challenges, to be able to live their lives the same as children that don't have disabilities. And then also to further awareness, equity, and inclusion for these children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do the parents feel about what you're doing right at Hattie Lawrence?
Feel very good about it.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. I've gotten a lot of accolades from Hattie. On people have told me, I read your books to the kids all the time. I love your books. I love the story of the books, and they're very supportive of what I'm doing. And so, what I try to do every time I issue a new book, then I make sure that each pod in the facility where Sophia lives has copies of the book so that they can read to them too, because they actually get together and they read to the kids. And so the parents love it. I've had parents come benefit from something like this to read to their children.
Share with us the books now.
Okay, well, this is my first book that I published. This is God's Perfect Gift, Disability Through the Eyes of a Child is the name of the series. And this book was Winning the Race. And this book is about, is based on my granddaughter. I was inspired by her to write these books. And so what it talks about is Sophia being very excited that the special races are coming, and she has permission to participate in the races.
Who did your illustration?
My illustrations are by my cousin Jerome White, and I have to give him a shout out. He's an art teacher in the Cleveland Heights school system, and he's been through all the schools from elementary to high school for years.
Okay.
He is an excellent artist. He's very well known locally as well as around the country, nationally. And he does illustrations. He does paintings.
Mm-hmm.
He does just a
Repeat his
phenomenal
name one more time.
Jerome White.
So we can find
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Okay.
Jerome White. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is the second book that I wrote. Again, The God's Perfect Gift, Disability Through the Eyes of a Child. Special education is especially fun. Sophia loves school. She loves going to school because school makes so much fun for her. It's like having a play day all day. And the reason for that is that special education often involves what we would think were toys to teach children. And so there's examples in here of different switch toys that she's used to learn. And then when she got her new power wheelchair, how to operate the chair was part of her therapy, teaching her how to manage the chair and maneuver around in the chair. And then it has other examples too of things that she's done, like just going out in the gym in her gait trainer to watch the other kids while they play in the gym, or participate sometimes in the activities going on in the gym. So she loves school, and at the end of each story, the first book, Winning the Race, Sophia got something very special to remind her of the big day, and that was a gold trophy.
Okay.
And then at the end of the day, because she did so well in school, she got a blue ribbon. And so there's always an ending that it shows
nice.
success for these kids and achievement for that, time of the story. So.
When you're telling a story at the school, and they're listening to you,
Yes.
can you tell that they want to win at the end?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll have them, they'll giggle sometimes, when they hear certain things, and I kind of, we kind of embellish on it, like, oh my goodness, look at them, they're out on the track, they're going through the race now, or look at the clown blowing up the balloons that's shaped like an animal, that looks like a doggy, right? And so we get smiles, and they love it. They love it. Yeah.
Grace, you're the author of 2 books, and you said that there's a third one in the making, right?
One, yeah.
Were you writing prior to this?
Well, let me tell you about that. I had never wrote a book before I wrote this book, but I was always interested in creative writing from a child. And I used to love it when the teacher said, okay, we're going to have to write an essay. I'm the only girl in the class like, oh, an essay. Because I got to express myself through literature, literature that way. But I would write essays. I would write in my journal, my diary. My grandma bought me a diary and had my name engraved on the front of the diary. And every day when I got home from school, I wrote in my diary. And then it progressed as I got older to journaling. I even journaled through my husband's illness, my dad's illness, so I could keep up with what was going on. And it paid off to be very beneficial that I did that. And so I always liked creative writing. And then after my husband passed, I was sharing some thoughts that I had about the whole thing, everything that had happened. And my sister said, you know what? You're so good at communicating. She goes, why don't you write a blog? And I go, write a blog? I said, how in the world would I do that? How would I even start? And she goes, just go on the internet, set up a site, and start writing your blog. And she said, I bet people would want to know that. So that led me, I did that. And I set up a website, and it's called goodgriefforyou.com. And it's good grief together, but the 4U, the 4 is the letter 4, the number 4, and you, just the letter U. So goodgriefforyou.com. It is a safe, secure, community space for healing for anybody that wants to talk about or share their feelings about losing somebody that they loved, and maybe sharing for the rest of us ways that they found to cope so that they could move forward now into their new normal.
I asked you that because life be lifing.
Yeah.
And, so 13 years ago, you had a granddaughter who was born disabled.
Right.
And instead of the way that you've handled it, just like in regards to what you just shared with us, in regards to Good Grief for You, you don't just accept the challenges, you just build on it. And so, that is such hope for people, because so oftentimes people see it as a negative. And it is unfortunate, but you build on it.
Right.
You've got 2 books.
Right.
And your granddaughter is thriving in a community. She's doing dance recitals, okay?
Yes.
She's doing music therapy.
Right.
But I'm enthralled with how positive you are in regards to all of this, in regards to the loss of your husband, You said your father as well,
yes.
and your granddaughter that you're still, and there's so many things, and look at you. You don't look like what you've been through.
Yes, yes.
You don't.
You know what? That's because I am grateful. I am appreciative that God trusted me to have these challenges and trusted me to overcome them.
Amen.
And He helped me to do that. And in Sophia's case, that was God's gift to me. You know? And I'm blessed by
Amen.
having Sophia.
Amen.
And that's my ride or die buddy for life.
Amen.
You know,
But,
it's so beautiful that you said that because I'm thinking that from a perspective of the parent who really doesn't know what to do and feels overwhelmed,
Right.
you gave them a tool called journaling.
Yeah.
You gave them a tool called reading the books to your
Right.
kids. You gave them a tool to go out and socialize and find out what other
Right.
parents are doing. And I'm getting ready to mess with Amanda. Amanda, you know when she mentioned earlier that music, that she responded to music, is music one of those things that children that are autistic or have severe disabilities, they just gravitate to some form of music?
I mean, I think music, much like a lot of therapies, can be engaging for students and can
Yes,
certainly be
engaging.
something that bring a level of enjoyment. You know, of course, people's lives are multifaceted and have many different dimensions and angles and things to pursue. But instructionally speaking, therapies for people with significant disabilities have been well researched, and there's a lot of science behind the best ways to instruct people with very specific and intensive learning needs. And so the things that are used in special education are science-based. And so while, you know, as part of a holistic program, there will be art therapies, music therapies, equine therapies. There's a lot of different aspects and resources, but instructionally speaking and for habilitative purposes, you do rely on science-based procedures, specifically things like applied behavior analysis. Different types of teaching techniques have been proven to build certain skill sets which will allow people with very special learning needs to access more and more of the community. So therapies are a part of a holistic program, but instructionally speaking, you rely on scientific analysis.
You know what, that makes me think of something too, because my book is a value-added asset for people that are building and trying to build social and emotional learning competencies in the special ed curriculum. And I've had a lot of the teachers that I've talked to and superintendents of schools, when I let them know that it's not just a fun children's book, this book is purposeful. And you can use these examples, you know, whether you're having read alouds with kids, you know, or other types of ways that you deliver on things to help them learn to understand like emotions, you know, and how to respond to emotions, or see things that let them know that it's okay to be hugged or something. But that has been something that I've touted along with the books. Like, it's a great book, it's a great read, it's fun, but this book has a greater purpose to it, I think, to take it in and consider it. If you want to develop programs around how do you develop those social and emotional competencies in children from a learning perspective, so that they can learn like how to, you know, it might help them become more socialized. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. A couple of years ago, my former doctoral advisor and I authored a book. It's called There's More to the Story, and we took books very similar to, you know, authentic children's literature books,
Right.
and develop actual lessons around each of these books. So teachers, you know, have a lot going on in their day. They often are very challenged just to find 2 seconds to, you know, do things that they need to get done. So we built actual explicit lessons around how to use books like these in the classroom to not just work with kids with disabilities, but kids without disabilities across a variety of different characteristics, disability included, but also talking about different aspects of diversity, whether that's race or gender, religion, socioeconomic status, so children can really benefit from all the different characteristics of everybody around them. So having teachers build in lessons like this can be very helpful, but it's really helpful for a teacher to put guidelines around, okay, what is the objective? Like, what do we want the students to take from this lesson? How do we present the lesson?
Right.
What are the different activities that they go through? What are the things that they do to engage with it, with their peers, to optimally benefit from a book like that? So, and of course, across different social emotional skill sets. So we teach things like how to advocate for oneself, right? How to stand up for something when you see something wrong happening around you. How do you stand up and advocate for others around you? How do you resolve conflict with peers? When you see people who are different from you, how do you interpret that, and how do you communicate with people that maybe you're not so familiar with? So all these types of things that kids need to learn about, which are beautifully illustrated in children's literature, do need some guidance around them for how to best present it in the classroom.
It's funny because I have a niece who she has a business where she tutors and does other things that helps kids with SAT and whatnot. But she sent me a video of sessions she was having, and she had one of her students who is not disabled read. It was the first book, Reading the Race. And so she was asking her as she went along, she goes, so what do you think about that book about, do you think Sophia, how do you think about her disability? She said, she's not disabled. She goes, she was in a race. And so she said the purpose was to get these kids thinking like, that she's doing stuff that I do.
Yeah.
And she was and that was like when she told me that, I was like, oh, yay. Because that's what we want. My target audience is not just disabled children.
Right.
Because like in Sophia's case, when she was little, in the summertime, I take her out in the driveway sometime and just push. At that time, she didn't have the power wheelchair. She was, I think, around 5 or 6 then. And I'd take her outside and I'd wheel her up and down the street. We'd go out for our walks together. And then some of the kids on the street, they got to know her, and they'd be in the driveway playing basketball. And they'd stop and go, hey, Sophia, and then I'd stop and I'd let her watch them for a while. And then what I realized was, when I was little, to see a disabled kid was scary.
Yes, it was.
And that still exists today. I've had Sophia places where I see these other kids that are like, kind of, standoffish from her because I guess the wheelchair is intimidating to them, and they're not sure since she can't talk either, like it frightens them. And so I said, when I thought about this from a larger perspective, I said, a lot of kids now are growing up with either a disabled kid in the family, a disabled neighbor, and they're getting exposure to these kids at much earlier years in their life before they even go to school sometimes. And so it's broken down that kind of barrier caused from the stereotyping of disabled kids, when they were calling them the R word and acting like they were afraid of them because here's this person, oh, you're shaped different, or you don't look like you formed right, so, I'm scared of you. But, when you think about it, and then she was in a public school too when I put her in the kindergarten, and she blended in so well. The kids were like, I want to push Sophia. And so there was this big, competition for who was going to be able to push her up and down the hallway while they were changing classes. And a funny little story, they had a little boy there, and I can't say his name, but he was Sophia's age, but he was not disabled. And he took a liking to Sophia, and he wouldn't let anybody else push her around. And when she had to be stable, like they were doing something, he'd stand in front of the wheelchair and put his hands on her tray and just look at her. And so I went to pick her up one day, and I went up to the school for a meeting. That's what it was, because she rode the bus back and forth to school. But I went up to this meeting, and they said, "Oh, Miss Grace," she goes, "we have to tell you something about Sophia." And I go, "What about Sophia?" And they said, "Sophia has a boyfriend." And I go, "Oh, boyfriend." I said, "What? I'm going to talk to that little girl. It's too early for boyfriends."
That's so cute.
But those kids at the school loved her. You know, they would come up and try to help her. And she couldn't participate in the general ed classes because she got, off to the special ed. But, like, there were some that were just, general ed, like, going to the library, and having them read a book to you so she could participate, or like when they went to the gym at break time and stuff, so they'd take her down to the gym too, and they'd actually play with her, like try to bounce the ball off her, get her to push it off her tray, and then they toss it back, So kids are getting more and more used to these kids. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't start seeing, and probably see it now, maybe disabled children who become homecoming queen and king.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you're bringing up is a really critical point, especially currently in today's environment, is, as they're dismantling lots of federal agencies, the Department of Education recently being one, but what you're alluding to here is really the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, which is the governing legislation that accounts for things like you're talking about, which protects least restrictive environment. Least restrictive environment is a fundamental pillar of that legislation, which is ultimately controlled and governed by Congress, that this cannot be dismantled by executive order by the president. Because what it ensures is that individuals with disabilities receive their instruction in the least restrictive environment that will be beneficial to them. So what's important to note is that when kids with disabilities are integrated into public school settings and general education environments, this isn't something that's being pushed upon the population. And it's not just something that is done for the purpose of benefiting sometimes parents in general ed will say, "Oh, we have this kid with disabilities, they're taking so much of the resources, so much of the teacher's attention," so on and so forth. But it's meant to be beneficial not only for that individual, but for everybody in the classroom, for reasons that you're very much mentioning right now, one of them being social reasons, right? So kids with disabilities, depending on the intensity of the disability, will either access the general curriculum if they're mild to moderate disabilities. If they're moderate to intensive, they may have a functional curriculum or an adapted curriculum, which is built off the general education curriculum, but should still be receiving it in the setting that is least restrictive to them, that allows them access to same age peers and social engagements like the things that you're describing right now. And of course, those pieces are considered foundational to this legislation and is absolutely protected by Congress. So cannot be whittled away, cannot be, in one sweep of the pen, as we're seeing so many things be done politically right now, can't be dismissed away that way. But what's critically important right now for everybody to know is that while the Department of Education is being dismantled, gutted one by one, all of this responsibility is transitioned to the states, which is why hearing about stories like yours and Sophia's and different considerations of special education in the disability community, everybody should be aware that that's transitioning to states' rights and that people in states need to be connected to their state Department of Education and really locked into.
You talk about family members,
teachers, of course, educators and professionals know this, but family members and advocates for those with disabilities need to be connected to their state legislatures for how budgeting is spent, how the different allocations are going to public school systems, not being diluted away into vouchers, which have virtually no protections, that we are aware that public schools should be the guardians of these pieces as guardians and caretakers of our community members, our most vulnerable community members. So really pay attention to what's happening at the state level now that these things are being, budgets are being passed to states, and the way these funds and resources are allocated are moving away from the federal agency. But IDEA is still federal law and necessary to be protected.
Ladies, I thank you guys so much. Is there anything that you'd like to say in regards to us getting your book out to the public? Where can they purchase it, or how they can get back?
Well, right now, the books are on Amazon, or you can purchase them through my website, which is www.godperfectgift.com. And also on my website, anybody that goes there, on the homepage when you come in, there is a free tool there that talks about, resources available for adults raising disabled children. So that's something that we have on the site. And then there's another resource page as well with different links and stuff to follow to get your hands on, help if you have a disabled individual that you're caring for. And so it's a fun site, but you can purchase them through the site too, godperfectgift.com.
Well, ladies, Leslie, thank you for coming. Amanda, thank you for coming. Grace, thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
And this concludes our